let's just start with the Panthers since we're all kind of euphoric at the fact that 17 games into this season, now that it's over, I think the Panthers, he still has to get better. We still need to show improvement, but I think they might have their quarterback.
I think so. I've been sort of banging that drum for a few weeks now, and I'm not alone by any stretch of the imagination. We were texting about it, and I was doing season-long grades for every NFL team, and I think the Panthers were one of the few teams that were below 7 wins that I gave a B to because I don't think you look at the Panthers season and say, "Wow, incredible year." Great job, everybody gets a raise. But, you look around at some of these teams that finish 8-9 or 7-10, and a lot of them are having the owners issue press releases that say, we're not going to fire everybody. and when you look at the Panthers, I don't think there's a discussion about firing Dave Canales and whether or not we think Dave Canales is a good coach, another topic. But the fact that even if it was an accidental genius move to get Bryce Young back in the starting lineup and have him play well, the fact that he did come back and play well and had some of these great moments and big throws and, led the team to wins or kept them competitive. They weren't really that far off from being an 8-9 team with some close losses against good teams or a better start to the season. It can be dangerous, but to suggest that performance at the second half of a season can just roll right over to the next year. But I do think you have to be optimistic about what Bryce Young did over the second half of the season, and in the context of young quarterbacks and where they stand with their various franchises. I think the gap between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. I know he's a 10-win back to the playoffs for a second straight year. C.J. Stroud is, but that gap has shrunk enormously. Yeah. In terms of what you would definitely do moving forward. And I'm not saying Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, but I think if the Panthers can go out and they're going to have great stability on the offensive line. You're going to have stability with the coaching staff. Go out and get another weapon. Improve the defense. Get some guys healthy on that side of the ball. And I don't think it's a team that's going to be favored to win the division or anything by any stretch, or even favored to go to the playoffs. But it's a team where you start to feel some optimism about for the long haul.
Here's the way I look at it, because if you go back to September, after the second week of the season, it was it was gross. It literally was just absolutely gross, like the weather today, but in football terms.
Right.
Week 2. And then Andy Dalton is the quarterback, and Dave Canales wasn't even addressing the possibility that Bryce Young could ever take a snap again. And then, of course, the car accident happens a few weeks later, and now Bryce is coming back. But even those first couple of games, I was listening to Jake Delhomme, who does color for most of the football games, and even the first couple of games, Delhomme was like, it's okay. But then he had that one good game, and I don't know if it was the third or fourth game back, where he goes, this was progress. This was a guy making reads, throwing the ball down the field, looking decisive. This is the first time we saw him do that. Now, I'm not completely discounting Dave Canales' role in Bryce Young's development, but I give the overwhelming majority of the credit to Bryce Young. Because what a mental hurdle to overcome his first year plus 2 games in the NFL.
2 games in when he was benched, 2 games into his second season when he's benched, and the former number 1 overall pick is sat down. It's over for him in Carolina.
Yep.
It is hard to imagine, where the franchise even go. This is how wild NFL seasons are, right? We're talking 3 months ago, 4 months ago,
Forever.
where, the general pervasive sentiment around Panthers fans was where does this franchise even go for the next 5 years? Because you not only just set the number 1 overall pick on fire, but you traded future first round picks, right?
Right.
The number 1 pick the next year when they get Caleb Williams, you trade DJ Moore. You're on your Who knows if Dave Canales survives? You're on your fourth coach in 3 years somehow, and it's a sort of a testament to the importance of patience, which is something that's been lacking with Carolina. I think I am hesitant to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's give David Tepper a little bit of credit for stepping back, right? Because he kind of did it. He's been a little hands off, letting the football guys do football things. And I also think you got to give Dan Morgan some credit too, and Dave Canales, because they're paired pretty closely, for the decision making this offseason to go out and improve the offensive line and to coach up that offensive line, because that's really one of the biggest differences in all of the NFL is the jump from a league worst offensive line and the worst quarterback in football, Bryce Young, to an above average starter and a really good offensive line that paved the way for Chuba Hubbard to run for a monster season. You got to hit with some draft picks. You need to make smart moves in free agency. You can't look at this as, all right, let's go spend a bunch of money and we're really, really close to, getting there. You just got to look at this as, all right, year one of Bryce was a disaster. Year two was nearly a disaster. But at the end of the day, aren't we kind of where we hoped we'd be when we took a quarterback first overall?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. So you sort of have to kind of reset your brain and get yourself back into that mentality of let's build on what we've got, not overextend ourselves. Not think we're not a piece away. We're not whatever it is, and go out and make smart decisions, allocate the cap correctly, and hit on some draft picks, and you can have a team that is a frisky wild card contender within as soon as next year, maybe the year after.
Will Brinson, senior NFL writer, CBSSports.com. We'll finish on this. Actually, I think they might be a shade behind where I would hope they would have been, because I would have hoped that last year wasn't an unmitigated disaster, but it was because the roster was so bad. And then this start. So I would have loved to have seen the first half of Bryce Young this year, not the first two games, but the first half of his Bryce Young, I guess, 2.0. I would have liked to have seen that at the end of last year and then take the next steps. But we got here. We're not that far behind his development. And now if you add the roster, he has a good offseason. I think they could be in pretty good shape. So let me ask you.
Yeah, and I would just say really quickly too. I think one thing that the Panthers in their current iteration need to realize, and this is something a lot of teams need to realize, is that hitting on those big splashy first round picks are crucial. But go look at the Detroit Lions. Aleem McNeil, 3rd round pick. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th round pick. They got Jamison Williams and Aiden Hutchinson with, and Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell with their first round picks from the Stafford deal, but then Brian Branson in the 2nd round, Sam Laporta in the 2nd round. You have to hit on more than just those first round picks.
Yeah.
And you need to be smarter about trading back and accumulating more draft picks and piling up talent and hoping to hit on some of those mid-round picks. You look back at the Matt Corral trade where they give up all the stuff to go get him in the 3rd round and never plays a snap. That's something that this franchise specifically needs to focus on, especially because they traded so many first-round picks to get Bryce Young.
No question about it. You mentioned the Lions. I want to go there. If I think I have this right, Dan Campbell won
just for you.
Yeah, Dan Campbell won 3 games, then 9 games, then 12 games, then 15 games with all of those injuries on defense, and they shut down the Minnesota Vikings. That might have been more about Sam Darnold. I don't know, but I'm going to give the Lions credit for 31-9. They're the betting favorites now to win the Super Bowl with a defense that was getting shredded over the last month of the season until last night. That is one of the most remarkable things I have ever seen.
Worth noting, by the way, Dan Campbell was 1-6 in 2022. They finished the season 9-8.
Yep.
Which is really remarkable. And there was a lot of talk that Dan Campbell was going to get fired and that it just wasn't working out. And everybody was happy with the effort and the enthusiasm and all of that. And so again, you go back to patience with NFL teams. I think with Detroit and Dan Campbell specifically, winning, when you win football games and you have yourself and you're aligned with ownership and you're aligned with the front office, it just gives you a little more freedom to kind of be yourself as a coach. And we've seen that with Dan Campbell. He's up 15, like just line up and take a field goal, man. Make it a 3-score game. Nah, he's gonna like try to draw them off sides, get the first down, ice it, punch the ball in. I think what's really impressive about what the Lions did specifically is when all those injuries added up, they lose to the Bills a couple of weeks ago. Dan Campbell goes on this like epic F-bomb laden radio rant in Detroit and points out that they need to eat some moldy bread because they've been eating too much steak. And while that's sort of like, like you got to take your medicine and sort of reset where how you view yourself, and it's not all, roses and all that. I also think it was a message, hey, we're going to lean into what we can do well. Like, we're not going to try and be this, like physical ground and pound, low key offense team that just makes it work on defense, even though all our guys are hurt. Instead, like, we're just going to lean in and just be hyper aggressive and hyper creative and, like just score as many points as we can. And like the Lions can still make stops on defense. We saw that. Aaron Glenn's done a fantastic job on that defense this year. He's getting plenty of head coaching interviews already now that the Lions are on the bye. And I think that, like, sort of that freedom to say, like, all right, like, Aaron Glenn, you go, like, be a mad scientist here with this defense because we don't have the same personnel that we thought we were going to have at this point in time just because we've been riddled with injuries. And on the other side of the ball, we're just going to keep our foot on the gas and know that we have to outscore people. I mean, everybody has to outscore people every week, but it's like you have to score like 30 plus to feel comfortable walking away from a game with a win. The Lions can do that with their offensive line with all of those weapons. They're going to get David Montgomery back, hopefully for the divisional round. Like they're only going to get better on offense, really, and which is crazy to think. And I think they probably should be the favorite. They're getting the bye. There's going to be a ton of chaos in the NFC, I think. You have multiple teams. Actually, I guess the Vikings are favored by like 2.5 on the road. But, I mean, yeah, the Lions can beat anybody in that side of the bracket. They've shown that. And, one-game sample. Look, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson are a problem. But the Lions have enough talent to beat anybody in the NFL. So I have no problem with them being the favorite.
I'm going to offer this advice to the ether. And if you know anybody that can get it back to Aaron Glenn, please get it to him. Don't
take the Jets job.
Exactly. He is a former Jet. He was an original Jet, right? And a great great cornerback for the Jets. Don't do it, Aaron. You deserve better. Do not do it. He'll get mentioned. Rex Ryan is openly lobbying for that job. Part of me wants that to happen because, I mean, I like Rex, and I was pro-Rex when I was a Jets fan. I thought Rex Ryan was an excellent head football coach. He just had a bad quarterback, and then it unraveled when they couldn't cover for Mark Sanchez anymore. And he probably he was ended by the butt fumble. You couldn't come back from the butt fumble. But part of me thinks that they should just go to Rex for the comedic purposes only. But the best choice for as good a head coach candidate as there is out there is Aaron Glenn. What he has done with that team over the years has been great, and he was a good defensive coordinator before then.
I think Mike Vrabel is really interesting for a couple jobs.
Well, it's one job. If he's not the coach of the Patriots at the start of next year, you won't be shocked?
No, I will be shocked, but I just think like he interviewed with the Jets. There's some I think the Patriots' job is really interesting because in the statement after they fired Gerard Mayo on Sunday, Robert Kraft said Gerard Mayo got interview requests from other teams, and I was worried I'd lose him. And the Jets had just interviewed Mike Vrabel, and I wouldn't be surprised if like that FOMO exists there, or Mike Vrabel took that interview simply to get the Patriots interested in him as a coach. Also, a little buzz about Mike Vrabel in Jacksonville and the possibility of that, just for whatever that's worth.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Robert Kraft said that Gerard Mayo was getting like this year, or was this is about last year? He was getting
last year.
Okay. Because, like, yeah,
Have you ever heard in a statement like that? He said, I mean, it's like he's like when other teams started requesting to interview him, I feared I would lose him and committed to making him our next head coach. That is not something you want to say out loud, much less write down in a publicly distributed statement. You're basically like, I'm like a teenage girl with FOMO, and when I was kind of interested in this, but then other teams were interested, so I was like, oh, I've got to have him. Like, oh, if other teams want him, I've got to keep him. I mean, and then to fire him after 1 year, it's pretty crazy.
All right, let me ask you real quick about a couple of games. Steelers could not win at home over the Bengals. Bengals were never going to make the playoffs because the Broncos were always going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs mannequins.
Yeah.
But the Steelers have now lost 4 in a row. They didn't lose to any bad teams in that. They also didn't play all that poorly in those games, but they did lose 4 in a row. This team is limping into the playoffs at the wrong time. Is it better for them, actually, that they're playing the Ravens?
No. I think I mean, look, there's some familiarity there. It's the third time you're playing them. You know, you've got it's the rubber match in the division and all of that. And I understand, like, the Tom and Harbaugh thing, you know, certainly, like, the familiarity helps, but you're playing the Ravens, who are really hot right now. And Lamar Jackson's playing great football. I think Pittsburgh, to me, they still overachieved on the season. I think I gave them like a B+ maybe, but
right.
I don't see how you can give a team that, you know, had a multiple game lead in the division and then didn't win the division like an A on the season, because at the end of the day, you know, when you're sitting where you're sitting and they were what, 10-3? Like you need to win the division. You need to have a home playoff game. You know, you're not going to get the bye because KC just was a bunch of warlocks. But like to close out the season like that, to me, and I've been saying it for a few weeks now, it just shows that there is just a gulf between the 3 teams at the top of the AFC and the rest of the teams in the AFC. The NFC to me wide open. Anybody could win it. It's out there. I mean, I think Washington, maybe the rookie quarterback, would be a surprise. But I think the bigger surprise would be if it wasn't the Ravens, Bills, or Chiefs out of the AFC.
Packers lost to the Bears? Wow. First of all, is Jordan Love healthy? If Jordan Love is healthy, what chances do you give them of going from 7 to the Super Bowl?
He is healthy. He could have come back in, Matt LaFleur said yesterday. So
that doesn't mean Matt LaFleur is telling us the truth.
Right. I mean, that game, like the outcome of that game, which was just you become the 6th seed, or maybe if Washington loses, which they didn't, or you're the 7th seed, is pretty nebulous. Like, you don't risk Jordan Love suffering another injury where you can give it a week to get healthy. They're 4.5-point dogs, slight juice in Philly. I mean, that's obviously the big test, right? You got to go to Philly and play a team that essentially has a bye, is really stout on both sides of the ball, has great talent in the trenches. I mean, we're going to need to see Jordan Love do what he did in Dallas last year, which is just get hot. And I don't know that you necessarily have the same vibes about them coming into the playoffs that you did last year. But yeah, like, again, any of these teams can make a run in the NFC. I firmly believe that.
Are you prepared to give me the Super Bowl, your pick for the Super Bowl, and the winner right now?
Absolutely. It's the same as it was before the season. If I get both the teams in the playoffs, both teams win their division, I can't back off that. Bills-Rams. Matthew Stafford gets I do think, like, Bills-Lions is the best possible Super Bowl, just because, neither team has a Super Bowl. They have NFL championships, not a Super Bowl. That matchup, like, getting those fan bases in New Orleans would be insane. But I'll stick by my Bills over Rams preseason prediction since it's still alive.
Will Brinson, at Will Brinson on Twitter, CBSSports.com, senior NFL writer. He sorts the Sunday pile. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. See you, man.
You got it.